This story opens on the medieval town of Ebelstein, nestled in a valley. In its slums, an old man demonstrates a flash of blue magic to a child. This locals mock him as the boastful old man, a fraud with only one-star magic. His temper was legendary, furious at children for mere pranks. One day, a white-haired boy with red eyes stood before him in the alley. That boy recalls how he learned magic from the old man. Their training began simply by a campfire with no grand reason. This old man needed a follower to validate his boasts, and the boy, he simply needed knowledge to survive. Seasons changed from the bare branches of winter to the vibrant life of spring, marking the passage of their time. In a misty forest, the old man oversees the boy's seated meditation. This boy strains, sweat beating, as blue mana visibly swirls around him. This old man watches, stunned, realizing the boy has grasped the flow of mana. A close-up on the boy's determined red eye as power surges through his outstretched hand. This white-haired boy unleashes a shimmering blue energy blade, his mentor watching from behind. This blast strikes a stone wall with explosive, shattering force. In a sunlit field, the old man stands over the kneeling boy. A bead of sweat traces down the old man's weathered face. With fierce red eyes, the boy recalls becoming a one-star mage in a single year. A lone tent stands against a darkening twilight sky. This old man takes a swig from his bottle, scoffing about noble brats. He warns the boy that common blood will never reach their level. This boy eats silently, listening to the lecture on bloodlines. A quiet question forms: did the old man long for what he could not have? By the campfire, the boy watches his mentor sleep under the stars. Rain begins to fall through the dark forest canopy. This next day, he returns to find the old man's lifeless body. His face hardens, assuming a fight caused the bruises covering the corpse. A mysterious box lies half buried in the wet earth. Dangling from a cliff in the pouring rain, the white-haired youth hears of an old man's brutal fate. Standing before a simple wooden cross, he salutes his fallen mentor under the relentless downpour. This official story claims the old man died stealing a low-grade magic book, a tale that feels hollow. Her expression turns serious as she warns that unchecked greed will ultimately hinder his progress. His crimson eyes burn with resolve, remembering the old man's obsession with noble bloodlines he could never have. This system confirms his otherworldly origin, locking in his primary magic school as the path forward. A peaceful village vista establishes the setting, 4 years after that fateful night in the rain. Katia Flameheart is introduced, a confident noblewoman with a striking presence and a fallen family name. Her banner signifies a one-sprout house. As a 3-star mage, she was highly sought after. While working for a mercenary company, she took the young, 1-star mage under her wing. In quiet moments, she imparted crucial knowledge to her eager pupil, bridging the gap in their power. This scene shifts to Beldern's Tears Tavern, a cozy establishment bathed in the warm light of sunset. Over drinks, Katia acknowledges Derek's talent, noting his natural ambition to climb the ranks of mages. A glowing blue interface suddenly materializes, presenting him with an irreversible choice of magical specialization. Derek listens intently, his red-eyed gaze fixed on his mentor as he absorbs her crucial advice. This woman in the cloak instructs the white-haired boy to close his eyes and feel the mana. He concentrates, sensing its origin and flow as she guides him to manifest what he imagines. Blue energy swirls around the boy as the woman watches from above, her expression unreadable. She notes his considerable innate mana and stable control, likely from his combat experience. His eyes snap open, glowing with intense purple energy as the mana surges around him. A close-up reveals the woman's shocked expression, her eye wide with sudden realization. A massive explosion rocks the building, shaking the structure and sending debris flying. Inside, patrons scream in panic, asking what is happening as chaos erupts around them. This boy looks down at his smoking hands, alarmed, while voices outside demand someone check. This woman swiftly grabs his wrist, her touch firm as she calls him master. She pulls him along, telling Derek to stay quiet and just follow her immediately. Guards rush into the tavern, searching for the source of the explosion they definitely heard. This pair moves quickly through a narrow alley, the woman leading the boy away from the scene. He follows, calling out master. As they hurry toward the light at the alley's end, she stops, turning to face him with a serious expression, about to deliver a crucial warning. With a determined look, Derek simply answers, yes. Katia then explains nobles are fiercely protective of their magical privileges. She notes innate power is their exclusive blessing, though rare commoners break through. Those few usually spend lifetimes dedicated to magic, unlike his rapid progress. She reveals the spell he just instinctively used is a 2-star illusion. A system confirms his new rank, unlocking advanced magic at just 14. Their training continues, with Katia teaching him various spells and noble lore. A year later, she prepares to depart, her carriage waiting on the street. Her new role is tutoring for the powerful Count Elvester family, a major house. A close-up captures her conflicted smile, caught between opportunity and her pupil. She tells him this teaching position is an immense, unrefusable blessing for her. As a parting gift, she leaves him a valuable 2-star magic book. His acquired magic list expands significantly, covering combat, illusion, and detection. Alone now, Derek sits and pores over the gifted tome with intense focus. Another year passes, and at 16, he has self-taught 2 more advanced spells. With renewed determination, Derek stands outside Beldern's Tears Tavern, resolved to keep climbing. Inside, the tavern keeper leans over the counter, offering a lucrative new job. He reveals the client is the prestigious Grand Duke Duplain family, asking if Derek understands. Derek's eyes narrow, questioning why such a powerful family would seek them out. This keeper scoffs, emphasizing the Duplain's legendary wealth and free-spending reputation. He excitedly explains this job could open a permanent, profitable connection with the ducal house. Intrigued despite his doubts, Derek asks what exactly they want him to do. This keeper explains it is simple: hunt down a few monsters on the duchy's outskirts. Derek is skeptical, finding the task suspiciously easy for such a high-profile client. His instincts scream that something is deeply fishy about this entire arrangement. Declining outright, he turns to leave, telling the keeper to find someone else. Panicked, the keeper shouts after him, desperately trying to make him wait. Derek pauses, coldly stating he does not do shady jobs and to call another. This keeper pleads, insisting Derek is the only mage available and therefore the only choice. Derek questions why the Duplain would need to hire outsiders for such a minor task. Derek stares at the single gold coin in his palm, his expression unreadable. Three figures are presented: a stern monocled man, a serene woman, and a hooded figure with glowing eyes. A bearded man introduces Derek to the clients, but the monocled man immediately disapproves. This monocled man scoffs, questioning why a child who has not even had his ceremony is here. This bearded man urgently defends Derek, insisting he is the most skilled mage he knows. Dismissing the defense, the monocled man turns to leave, declaring the mission too important for a child. This woman pulls the monocled man aside, whispering urgently as he listens with a frown. This hooded figure watches them with a knowing smile while the others look on with concern. A voice calls out, asking if he is Derek and stating they need to have a talk. This scene shifts to the lush, mountainous landscape of the Grand Duchy of Duplain. A goblin is violently struck midair by a blast of blue magical energy. Derek's crimson eyes glow with intense focus as he channels his power in the heat of battle. With a swift motion, his blade cleaves through a goblin, blood spraying across the frame. Another goblin roars, raising a crude club to strike Derek from behind. He dodges at the last second, the goblin's weapon slamming into the ground where he stood. Derek stands victorious over a snarling goblin, his crimson eyes cold with finality. Blue energy chains erupt from his hands, binding the remaining goblins in a flash. With splatters on his face, he calmly reports the mission's completion to an unseen officer. A monocled nobleman and two women observe from a distance, their expressions unreadable. This hooded woman with a diamond mark smiles, impressed by his swift efficiency. This scene shifts to the warm, inviting exterior of Beldern's Tears Tavern at dusk inside. A furious blonde woman slams her hands down, accusing Derek of becoming a noble's dog. This tavern owner pulls her away, chastising her for causing a scene with customers present. She whirls on him, demanding to know how much he is being paid for his pride. Holding up a single finger, the owner reveals the payment is a measly silver coin. A close-up captures his sly, knowing smile, hinting at a truth yet to be revealed. Her anger instantly vanishes, eyes sparkling with greed at the mention of a gold coin. This owner shouts for quiet as she jokes about crawling between legs, causing a ruckus. Moments later, she is passed out on the bar, drooling, as the owner asks about the job. Derek downplays the work, while the owner notes the client seems surprisingly wealthy despite the task. Derek reveals his suspicion: all three noble representatives were lying about their identities. This tavern keeper reacts with surprise, questioning Derek's sharp assessment of the situation. He explains a noble dispatcher should have youth and social grace, but that person had none. This supposed scullery maid's hands were too clean, betraying her claimed role as a laborer. Derek's thoughts turn to the apprentice inspector, his name echoing with unresolved doubt. A close-up captures his crimson eyes, sharp with calculation and lingering suspicion. This mercenary leader dismisses the concerns, stating their job is simply to get paid. With a reluctant sigh, Derek concedes, his agreement laced with quiet reservation. A narrative box emphasizes the mercenary's creed: in the wild, only survival matters. This scene shifts to the next day under a bright sky over the Grand Duchy. Derek reports the goblins are cleared, standing amidst the aftermath as officials watch. A monocled official acknowledges the good work, then turns to the matter of final payment. A hand holds up two gleaming gold coins, shining with a brilliant, surprising light. This mercenary leader celebrates the unexpected windfall, while Derek remains wary and reserved. This monocled official clears his throat, preparing to speak as the transaction concludes. This monocled nobleman, Dallin, formally offers Derek a new high-stakes request. Jaren, the bearded mercenary, reacts with stunned disbelief at the sudden proposal. Dallin reveals the staggering payment of 15 gold coins, leaving Jaren speechless. A close-up on Dallin's eye as he presses Derek for an immediate answer. With unwavering crimson eyes, Derek simply agrees to the dangerous commission. Their carriage departs down a sun-dappled road, beginning the journey to the duchy. An establishing shot reveals the immense, opulent Grand Duchy of Duplain estate. Jaren marvels at the grand residence, while Derek remains quietly observant. Before entering, Dallin insists on a proper introduction, flustering the mercenary. He reveals himself as the chief steward, apologizing for the earlier secrecy. Jaren panics at the high rank, while Derek remains stoically unfazed. A warm, smiling woman introduces herself as Katerina, the head maid. Flustered, Jaren awkwardly introduces himself and his mercenary company to the staff. Derek internally notes the surprisingly high ranks of the estate's key personnel. Katerina turns, her dress sweeping as she leads them deeper inside. This bearded man's eyes widen in shock as Derek's crimson gaze sharpens with sudden understanding. A cloaked figure steps forward, the sound of their movement cutting through the tense silence. Introducing herself as Aizelin Aliner Duplain, she proposes Derek become her sister Della's magic tutor. Derek's face registers stunned disbelief at the offer from the Grand Duchy's eldest daughter. This scene shifts to the Grand Academy, its spires reaching toward a clear, bright sky. Ornate double doors burst open with a dramatic crash, announcing an urgent arrival. A young man storms into the study, shouting for his father and brother to look. This stern patriarch, glasses perched on his nose, demands his son Reg act with dignity. Reg furiously accuses his sister Della, claiming she's now laying hands on the servants. A maid kneels on the floor, tears streaming down her face in silent, trembling fear. This calm, blonde brother Valerian interrupts, asking Reg to lower his voice during their conversation. Reg continues his tirade, revealing over 10 servants quit last month due to Della's violent outbursts. He leans over the desk, demanding his father explain how long he'll tolerate the troublemaker. Valerian shouts his brother's name, his patience finally snapping at the chaotic scene. A close-up captures Valerian's sharp, blue eyes burning with cold, restrained fury. Reg demands the conversation stop, his voice sharp with finality. Behind him, the women whisper about Diella's troublemaking versus Aizelin's compliance. Turning to his father, Reg suggests it is best to let Diella go now. This father coldly asserts this is not Reg's decision to make, his tone absolute. Already, he has had the butler research monasteries, framing it as God's will for Diella. Suddenly, the father grabs Reg by the collar, fury flashing in his eyes. A violent, swirling energy erupts, suggesting a clash of wills or hidden power. His voice drops to a dangerous growl, repeating that this is not for Reg to decide. Head bowed in silence, Reg seems to accept the harsh reality before him. Eyes cold and resolved, the father has made his unchangeable decision regarding Diella. Entering the grand hall, Derek is accompanied by the dark-haired Aizelin. Curious, Derek asks if she has heard about his younger sister, Diella. Aizelin confirms, noting Diella likely has not been revealed much to the public. Massive, ornate doors swing open, revealing the heart of the Duplain estate. From inside, a cheerful blonde young man greets Derek, calling him Big Brother. This cheerful blonde man, Valerian, warmly greets Aizelin, asking how Ebelstein has been treating her. A serene Aizelin replies politely, thanking him for his attention and stating she is living comfortably. Valerian then notes Reg's injury, suggesting they catch up later as the tense group disperses. A sharp, crimson-eyed gaze from Derek cuts through the scene, his focus intense and calculating. Reg and Valerian stand together, the former wiping his face while the latter looks on calmly. Another close-up reveals Derek's piercing red eyes, scanning the room with cold, analytical precision. In the background, a distraught maid weeps into her hands, her silent suffering palpable. Derek's expression remains stoic and unreadable as he observes the emotional aftermath of the confrontation. From behind his grand desk, the patriarch speaks, his tone measured as he addresses the room. Aizelin introduces Derek, explaining he is the magic teacher from Ebelstein who will take care of Diella. This father, stroking his beard, responds with a simple, contemplative, I see. With a polite smile, Aizelin excuses herself and Derek, citing the patriarch's busy schedule. As they turn to leave, the father's voice commands Derek to stay behind, halting their exit. Derek pauses, his silent compliance marked by an ellipsis as he turns his head slightly. This scene shifts to a close-up of the father's hand, writing with deliberate strokes on parchment. This bearded nobleman, adjusting his glasses, remarks on the boy's surprising youth. Seated calmly, the white-haired youth confirms his age is 16. From behind his desk, the noble questions his magical capability and the boy claims only basic skill. A knowing, almost mocking chuckle escapes the nobleman as he adjusts his spectacles. His expression hardens, calling out the boy's false humility as a poor tactic. This youth remains silent, his crimson eyes betraying a sharp, calculating mind. A dramatic reveal frames him as Grand Duke Duplain, his power radiating behind him. This boy offers a formal apology, which the Duke dismisses, citing the burdens of talent. Stroking his beard, the Duke openly doubts the young man's suitability for the tutoring role. With a slight smile, the youth plainly states his true profession as a mercenary. Accepting his daughter's choice, the Duke grants the boy access to the secluded annex. As the interview concludes, the youth interjects, requesting permission to ask one more question. A close-up shows the Duke's profile as he grants the boy leave to speak. This young man asserts his mercenary code, bound to fulfill any commission he accepts. He clarifies the mission's true scope, to teach Lady Diella magic and secure her societal standing. This monocled nobleman Dallin leans back with an annoyed expression. With crimson eyes fixed, Derek makes an earnest request of the chief steward. Dallin's brow furrows in confusion, a silent question hanging in the air. A single coin spins rapidly on a surface, its motion sharp and decisive. A maid is violently struck, crashing to the floor with a terrified scream. Trembling, she apologizes profusely to the unseen Lady Diella, her voice filled with fear. Diella's cold voice orders her to get out, threatening her with a low-born insult. A steaming teacup sits on a table as a voice questions Derek's selection. In a formal sitting room, Aizelin questions the steward about choosing a commoner. Aizelin explains they've exhausted every famous magic teacher across the continent. This steward reveals Derek is a former mercenary with unexpected noble knowledge. Smiling hopefully, Aizelin believes Derek's nature could help guide the troubled Diella. This steward chuckles, advising Aizelin she needs to learn to see through people. His expression hardens as he reveals Derek is a street mage with a rough past. Aizelin's blue eyes widen in stunned surprise at this stark revelation. Derek walks forward, flanked by the steward and head maid into the grand hall. He approaches a large, ornate door alone, the weight of the task settling. His gloved hand reaches for the polished doorknob, a moment of final hesitation. A sharp, deliberate knock echoes against the wood, announcing his arrival. His crimson eyes narrow in silent assessment before he enters the room. Stepping inside, he offers a simple, formal greeting to the occupant. He introduces himself to a blonde figure seated in the center, his tone polite. This second daughter, Diella Katrin Duplain, coolly commands him to approach. Derek crosses the lavish room, his cloak sweeping the floor as she watches. A close-up reveals Diella's subtle, knowing smile, hinting at hidden amusement. Something she says or does causes Derek to flinch, a sudden impact felt, sweat beads on his face, his expression tightening under the unexpected pressure. Diella stands, mocking his appearance and comparing him to a sewer rat. She continues her taunts, questioning if he is truly the hired mercenary. Her hand grips the chair's edge, a small sign of her agitated control. Her foot plants firmly on the stool, a deliberate gesture of dominance. Diella douses Derek with a bucket of filthy water, mocking his discomfort. Derek remains silent, sweat and water dripping from his tense jaw. Standing over him, she feigns disappointment, claiming she's run out of water. A close-up reveals Derek's crimson eye burning with cold, restrained fury. Diella's expression shifts to surprise, her taunting momentarily halted. Kneeling on the floor, Derek endures her sharp command to drop his insolent gaze. With a sudden, violent motion, she kicks the stool out from under him. A close-up of her shoe emphasizes the disgust in her voice. Pinching her nose, she insults him further, complaining of a foul stench. On all fours, Derek looks up, his sharp red eyes locking onto hers. Seated casually, Diella delivers her final, cutting insult about his place and purpose. This scene shifts to a quiet, empty study bathed in afternoon light. A man stands silhouetted against a grand window, his back to the room. A close-up reveals the bearded patriarch's stern, contemplative profile watching from afar. Derek directly questions the Grand Duke about the authority he will be granted for teaching Diella. His crimson eyes are sharp, demanding a clear answer on how much power the Duke will allow. This Duke's stern face tightens, his glasses reflecting skepticism at the young mercenary's bold inquiry. Diella blushes and looks away, her reaction hinting at embarrassment or discomfort with the discussion. Derek stands over her as she collapses to the floor, a tool in his hand suggesting confrontation. From the ground, Diella looks up at him, her expression a mix of defiance and rising fear. Her fingers touch her flushed cheek, words failing her as the tense moment stretches on. His eyes glow with an eerie light, his sharp command to wake up cutting through the silence. Flashback to 3 years ago, a carriage travels a sunlit road, a memory of simpler times. A younger Derek asks his master how to handle a stubborn, ungrateful student seeking advice. This master suggests understanding and acceptance, a philosophy that feels distant from the current conflict. Derek questions if that approach is too idealistic, hinting at his own harsher, pragmatic worldview. His master explains teaching is about guiding students, even if it requires finding a different starting point. A shadowy figure whispers the dark alternative, imprinting fear, a method that leaves a lasting mark. Back in the present, Diella's eyes widen in shock, her blush deepening as she processes his words. Derek stands over the kneeling Diella, his command to treat others with respect hanging in the air. On the floor, her hands press against the wood, the shock of his authority palpable. With a sudden snarl, Diella lunges, her fist striking toward his face. Her blue eyes blaze with fury as she demands how he dare touch her. A sharp crack echoes as Derek's hand meets her cheek, snapping her head to the side. His crimson gaze remains cold, repeating his lesson on consideration without a trace of remorse. Stunned, Diella's expression shifts from rage to utter disbelief, a single word escaping her lips. Shrieking, she calls for the head butler, accusing the lowborn of striking the young lady. This door bursts open as the head butler and maids rush in, alarmed by her cries. This butler confronts Derek, his voice trembling with outrage at the audacity of his actions. In response, Derek's gloved hand produces a sealed scroll, its presence silencing the room. He declares the Grand Duke has delegated all educational authority over Diella to him. This head butler adjusts his monocle, his face paling as he reads the official decree. Diella watches, her anger faltering as the weight of the document's authority becomes clear. Under the watchful moon, the grand estate stands silent, the first lesson concluded. For now, Valerian rushes in, physically restraining his furious brother Reg. This agitated nobleman points, shouting in recognition of the mercenary. From his seat, Derek watches the confrontation unfold in silence. Reg lunges forward, accusing the newcomer of laying hands on Diella. Calmly, the white-haired youth states he has the Grand Duke's permission. Valerian holds his brother back, warning about their sister Aizelin's position. With a final order, Valerian drags the protesting Reg from the room. Alone with Derek, Valerian whispers that Diella needs a firm hand. This mercenary's crimson eyes narrow, catching the sinister implication immediately. As they walk down the hall, Valerian dismisses Diella as a hopeless case. In a shadowed memory, a young Diella huddles fearfully with another child. Valerian and Derek enter a dark, silent chamber at the sound of a voice. This nobleman explains this preserved room was Diella's former living space. Derek's gaze falls upon an unfinished landscape painting resting on an easel. A nostalgic Valerian recalls how Diella once blushed showing him her artwork. Valerian reveals Diella's unfinished paintings, each one abandoned with blank spaces where she lost interest. Derek apologizes for his earlier outburst, but Valerian waves it off without concern. Surrounded by scattered canvases, Derek questions why Valerian brought him to this forgotten room. This nobleman's expression softens as he insists Diella was not always cruel and broken. Derek absorbs the revelation she was exiled from the main estate, confined to the annex alone. Valerian's desperation surfaces, begging Derek to teach her one spell before the monastery takes her. Hands gripping Derek's shoulders, the nobleman pleads with raw emotion to save his sister. Something catches Derek's attention mid-conversation, his crimson eyes narrowing with sudden interest. Flipping through dusty tomes, he discovers Diella's hidden notes, proof she never abandoned magic entirely. Derek recognizes the collection as disciplined school theory, and Valerian confirms nobles study that tradition. A close-up reveals Derek's calculating gaze processing this new information about her secret dedication. Another unfinished painting emerges, a forest waterfall frozen mid-stroke, capturing beauty she could not complete. Derek examines the book's spine carefully, searching for something hidden within its worn binding. Standing before the shelves with quiet resolve, he accepts the commission with 3 simple words. Moonlight floods through tall windows as night settles over the estate, marking the end of this chapter. In her lavish bedroom, Diella sleeps peacefully, unaware of what is coming next. Without warning, cold water crashes down in a violent splash. Diella jolts awake with a piercing scream, drenched and disoriented. Derek stands over her, bucket in hand, asking if she is still sleepy. She sits up, trembling with rage, demanding to know if he has lost his mind. His grip tightens on her wrist as he orders her to follow him somewhere. He drags her through the halls while she screams for the servants to intervene. They emerge outside the estate under the cover of night. He shoves her hard, sending her sprawling onto the cold ground. From the dirt, she glares up at him, defiant despite her position. He looms above her, mentioning she has not been listening, then offers something interesting. His expression darkens as he reveals he never planned to teach her magic. This confession freezes her blood, leaving her staring in stunned disbelief. He continues, explaining commoners have no reason to love nobles, calling his teacher role an excuse. His face inches from hers, a cold smile spreading as he describes noble screams as beautiful. A gloved hand draws a weapon, the sharp steel glinting as a voice questions his safety. Diella, backing away, retorts with cold confidence that she will be perfectly safe. Derek stands ready, his sword drawn, explaining her impending seclusion leaves no credible witnesses. Her expression turns sneering as she questions the value of a commoner's life in this conflict. A cold smile touches his lips as he considers a darker, permanent solution to his problem. Diella's bravado shatters, her face paling as the lethal intent in his eyes becomes clear. Panic takes over and she bolts, desperately planning to lose him in the familiar forest. From the shadows, Derek watches her flee, calculating the risks of pursuit across the open ground. A determined glint in her eye, she resolves to use her knowledge of the terrain to escape. Sprinting through the trees, she believes the dense woods are her best chance for survival. A sudden, violent sound cuts through the night, freezing her mid-stride in sheer terror. A massive, swirling fireball erupts into existence, illuminating the dark forest with its intense heat. Derek calmly holds the blazing sphere aloft, his expression unreadable in the fiery glow. Diella stares in utter shock, recognizing the spell as a high-tier magic far beyond his supposed means. A faint, knowing smirk plays on his lips as he enjoys her stunned disbelief. A fireball hurtles through the air, its flames roaring with destructive intent. Diella's golden eyes widen in shock, her face streaked with sweat and disbelief. This fiery projectile misses, slamming into the ground behind her as she stumbles. A massive explosion erupts, sending debris and smoke billowing into the night. Her eyes shift to blue, now filled with stunned confusion at the failed attack. Derek smirks, his crimson gaze cold as he notes her magic's poor accuracy. Under the full moon, the estate grounds fall silent, the air thick with tension. Diella scrambles to her feet, her dress tearing as she flees across the grass. Fear and fury mix on her face, tears welling as she glances back. Her foot catches on a root, sending her stumbling forward with a sharp cry. She crashes to the ground, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. On all fours, she gasps for air, her body trembling from the fall. An ice spear materializes, its crystalline tip gleaming with lethal precision. Diella rolls aside, the spear grazing her shoulder as she dodges desperately. Her eyes lock onto the frozen weapon, realizing the true danger she is in. Derek compliments her agility, his ice magic dissipating as he notes her unusual energy for an annex recluse. Diella's face shows pure shock, her breath catching as she processes his impossible magical display. She turns and sprints deeper into the forest, the sound of her flight echoing behind him. A cold smirk touches his lips as he watches her desperate run, calculating his next move. Her mind races with panic, questioning how long she can keep fleeing before he inevitably catches her. A sudden, sharp realization hits her, her eyes widening as she understands the true danger she's in. Derek kneels, placing a glowing hand on the ground as a magical circle pulses beneath him. From behind, he watches her disappear into the dark, dense woods ahead. His crimson eyes narrow with recognition, identifying the location as the forest from her childhood painting. A flashback reveals her canvas, explaining how she unconsciously channeled the area's mana into her art. His expression hardens with certainty, confirming his suspicions about her hidden connection to this place. Diella, in a final desperate act, hurls a large rock at him with a strained cry. With effortless precision, Derek catches the projectile midair, his magic halting its momentum. Her face contorts into a grimace of pure terror and frustration, sweat beading on her skin. Standing over her, he states he commanded her spirit, acknowledging the difficulty of her choice to attack. On the ground, gasping for breath, Diella's defiance crumbles into raw fear. Derek's crimson eyes lock onto her, coldly stating she is too exhausted to escape. His blade hovers inches from her throat as he demands her final words. A bitter laugh escapes her lips, defiance flickering one last time. She spits her contempt, calling him nothing but a lowborn beneath her station. His question cuts deeper than any blade. Why does bloodline define her worth? Tears stream down her face as she realizes her identity was never truly hers. Desperation consumes her, screaming that magic was supposed to be her salvation. She gazes at the moon, weeping, finally admitting she never truly tried. Collapsed and broken, she confesses her failures across every pursuit, magic, art, everything. Her voice breaks as she questions what remains when bloodline is stripped away. She lies defeated at his feet, whispering the question that haunts her. What am I? Derek stands motionless, his expression unreadable as silence stretches between them. His grip tightens on his weapon, blue energy surging through his clenched fist. A single tear traces down her cheek as she gazes up, stripped bare of pride. His blade raised under the moon, Derek acknowledges her desperate plea. Tears stream down Diella's face as she utters a final, trembling farewell. A streak of blue light cuts through the night air with lethal speed. Her eyes squeeze shut, bracing for an impact that never arrives. A single tear traces a path down her cheek, her expression frozen in shock. A massive wall of crystalline ice erupts from the ground, deflecting the attack. Diella looks up, her tear-streaked face illuminated by the glowing moon. Derek stands calmly amidst the shattered ice, his sword now sheathed. Her hands glow with a soft blue light, her own magic responding instinctively. A gloved hand snaps a wooden practice sword in two with casual force. He bows slightly, his voice dripping with false apology for his earlier rudeness. Stunned into silence, she watches him, her tears momentarily forgotten. His crimson eyes gleam as he dismisses her effort as mere mana manifestation. This dam breaks and a choked sob escapes her trembling lips. Overwhelmed, Diella collapses to her knees and wails amidst the fading ice. Trapped within a cage of jagged ice, Diella stares up at Derek in frozen shock. Sitting on a fallen log, he reveals her true magical lineage. She belongs to the Wild School. Derek explains that while all schools share fundamentals, the progress of their practitioners varies wildly. Diella realizes her failures stem from forcing disciplined school theory onto her innate Wild School nature. Her eyes wide with confusion, she asks how he could possibly know about her magical affinity. His crimson gaze meets hers, stating he saw the paintings she drew and felt the mana within them. He elaborates that Wild School mages naturally feel the world's mana from a young age. A close-up captures Diella's stunned expression, the truth of his words sinking in. After healing her leg, Derek stands, declaring she should now be able to walk. Walking ahead, he tells her she succeeded in manifesting mana but has a long journey ahead. In profile, the white-haired youth introduces himself with a single name, Derek. Standing alone in the forest, Diella hesitantly offers a quiet thank you. A tight shot focuses on Derek's mouth, his response a silent, thoughtful pause. Under the moonlit sky, the two begin walking back toward the estate together. As they walk, Derek asks about her sunset painting, but she denies it was ever hers. Morning light floods through the estate windows, signaling a new day after the forest ordeal. Diella jolts awake in her bed, disoriented from the night's events. Instead of striking, Diella simply walks past with a quiet warning to be careful. Her wide eye gleams with cautious wonder, sensing the magic now flowing through her. Smoke wisps from her palm as the unstable mana sputters and fades. A young maid approaches the door carrying a wooden bucket of water. This door swings open suddenly, startling the maid, who shrieks and loses her grip. Water erupts from the bucket midair, splashing across the hallway floor. This cold water drenches Diella's dress and shoes as she stands frozen. This terrified maid stammers apologies, expecting brutal punishment for her clumsiness. A dark aura radiates from Diella's expression, sending chills through the corridor. This maid drops to her knees, desperately begging for forgiveness from her cruel mistress. Blue mana flickers around her fingers as she experiments with her newfound Wild School abilities. This maid sits stunned, confused why Lady Diella did not punish her as expected. Fellow servants gather around the bewildered maid, whispering that something must have changed last night. Derek sleeps peacefully, unaware of the chaos about to unfold. A furious pounding on his door jolts him awake as Diella screams his name. Groggy and annoyed, he opens the door to find her demanding immediate lessons. This butler stands behind her, utterly shocked she has finally manifested mana. Diella insists he teach her control right now, her impatience radiating. With a cold stare, Derek simply closes the door in her face. Undeterred, she continues screaming and pounding, demanding he open up. He returns to bed, ignoring her tantrum as the sun rises. A figure walks briskly down a hallway, boots clicking with purpose. Two maids gossip in surprise, noting Diella has not thrown a single dish today. They whisper the shocking news that Lady Diella has manifested mana. A dark-haired man overhears their conversation, his expression turning sharp. He stops, his green eyes narrowing as he processes the revelation. "What did you just say?" he demands, his voice low and dangerous. A hand signs an official document with a quill, sealing a family decision. In the study, the father learns Diela manifested mana, questioning his children. A pleased, calculating smile touches the father's lips at the news. Raig cautions against celebrating just mana manifestation, his tone skeptical. A blonde woman scolds Raig for failing to praise his sister's achievement. A close-up reveals the father's sharp, calculating gaze behind his glasses. Raig coldly reminds everyone of Diela's past troubles, arguing the monastery still awaits. This father sits in heavy silence, his decision hanging in the air. Diela sits alone on her bed, hugging her knees in quiet frustration. Derek finds her and asks if she is sulking, hands on his hips. She turns, insisting she is not sulking but genuinely angry at the situation. He runs a hand through his hair, saying pettiness will not alter the outcome. Diela repeats her point, her voice tight with restrained fury. Derek's expression softens slightly, explaining everything follows a proper, unchangeable order. Finally, she spins around, shouting that she is angry, not pouting. Derek watches her silently, his crimson eyes holding an unreadable depth. Diela sits on the floor, pouting as he stands over her. He warns her that manifesting mana does not mean she can run wild. She complains about his stuffy teaching, but he insists it is time to learn. A dark smirk touches his lips as he offers a less stuffy lesson. A montage flashes, his menacing grin a glowing orb, her shocked face. Diela turns away with a HMPH, dismissing his dramatic display. He announces today's practice, mana manifestation, the key to one-star magic. His hand glows as he explains the wild school's freedom and self-study. He tells her she is quite suited to the wild school, leaving her confused. Derek confirms her temperament is compatible, noting her overflowing duplane talent. Her eyes widen with fragile hope as she asks if she has talent. He states raising an ice wall proves more than enough genius-level ability. Through the window, he clarifies talent and genius are not the same. A new figure approaches the estate, asking what comes next in her training. Raig's expression sours, a sharp tusk escaping his lips. This scene shifts to the grand estate under a bright, clear sky. Diela bursts into Derek's room, blue mana flickering uncontrollably from her hand. At the dining table, she shows him her cold energy, complaining it feels off. Chasing him through the halls, she shouts about the weird mana sensation. Finding him reading under a tree at sunset, she demands to know what he is doing. Hands on her hips, she scolds him for neglecting his duties near the annex. Derek looks up from his book, confirming that is exactly why he has it. She dismisses his attitude, insisting he check her successful mana channeling. Inside a lavish room, a blonde man stands with his back to the window. Derek enters and the man turns, asking if he was summoned. They sit across from each other, the father asking about Diela's recent progress. Derek reports she is improving, but mastering one-star magic will still take time. This father nods, mentioning their mother will return from a social gathering next week. His expression turns serious, warning Derek that nobles resent commoners in power. Derek listens calmly as the next family head tests his knowledge of their duties. This blonde heir pauses, his profile thoughtful as he considers his next words. Raig declares his future role, explaining a head must accept all family members sincerely. He gestures toward the window, lamenting how difficult it is to truly understand hearts. Growing impatient, Derek directly asks what point his brother is trying to make. A clenched fist rises, Raig's frustration palpable as he struggles with his emotions. His voice cracks with loneliness, revealing Diela refuses to spend time with him. Derek's crimson eyes narrow, his expression unreadable at this vulnerable confession. Raig reminisces about a kinder past, wondering if such an angel could exist again. Leaning in desperately, he begs Derek for any method to win his sister's favor. A sudden shout echoes, Diela appears, frantically searching for Derek down the hallway. Raig interrupts, eagerly showing Derek a strange new skill he learned from a maid. He presents a crudely made doll, asking if Derek can feel the brotherly love. Derek's gaze turns icy, accusing his brother of attempting a dark curse. This scene shifts to the grand Duplain estate under a bright, cloud-streaked sky. In the grand estate hall, Derek stands surrounded by servants as a noblewoman greets him warmly. Her calculating smile barely hides her true intent as she mentions his reputation. Myrla Pavel Duplain introduces herself with practiced grace, offering gifts to his territory. Derek's expression remains cold as he cuts through her pleasantries with a direct question. Taken aback by his bluntness, Myrla's composure falters for just a moment. His crimson eyes meet hers without flinching as he declares himself a commoner. This revelation shatters her aristocratic poise, her face drains of color at the word. 1 week earlier, a carriage arrives at the Grand Duke's imposing estate under clear skies. Diela's sister stands before Derek, affirming that bringing him here was the right choice. With a gentle smile, she explains her duties call her away, entrusting Diela to his care. Derek accepts the responsibility with his characteristic brevity, offering only a simple acknowledgement. His bearded companion chides him for the blunt response, noting the young lady's trust. Inside the departing carriage, the pair warns Derek to finish quickly before trouble finds them. This carriage wheels turn as Derek watches alone before the grand estate's towering facade. Suddenly remembering something crucial, the sister's eyes widen as her companion demands answers. A dark-haired woman glances back nervously, warning that mother returns next week. This bearded man questions whether that warrants any special preparation. Her hesitation stretches as she begins describing her mother's temperament. Green silk sweeps across marble floors, heralding an imposing arrival. This blonde matriarch storms in, furious about a commoner teaching her daughter unfazed. The father calmly suggests she lower her voice. Mariella dismisses his calm, crying out for Diella with desperate urgency. He admits he shares her reluctance about employing commoners. She counters that every noble-blooded teacher already abandoned the girl. He explains capable magic teachers are scarce and Derek came recommended. Standing firm, Mariella insists minimum qualifications still matter. A desperate idea forms, she proposes calling her brother Flam instead. This father scoffs at reassigning his army commander as a private tutor. She fires back that high society is its own brutal battlefield. Her final argument lands, a nameless tutor will doom Diella's social debut. This grand estate's ornate doorway frames the tense confrontation inside. Raig steps forward, pleading with Mariella to calm down and avoid conflict. Mariella coldly orders Derek to step back, refusing to overlook the issue. Derek stands firm, arguing that his qualifications matter more than his commoner status. With a sharp smile, Mariella turns to Raig, her eyes gleaming with intent. Derek calmly states that a commoner teaching nobles is unusual but acceptable if qualified. Raig interrupts, offering to test Derek's skills through a direct magic duel. This father cuts in, asserting Derek's genuine prowess as a mage. Raig falls silent, his green eyes narrowing at the unexpected defense. Derek shifts the focus, proposing they test Diella's progress instead. Raig's confusion is evident as he processes the sudden change in direction. Derek explains that dueling Diella will prove both his teaching and her growth. This father remains quiet, his expression unreadable as he considers the proposal. Derek turns to leave, his footsteps echoing as Raig calls out. Raig shouts in disbelief, questioning the wisdom of a magic duel with Diella. Raig questions Derek, his voice laced with skepticism about Diella's reformation. This blonde heir pleads, insisting their sister is still their blood to protect. A dark smirk touches Derek's lips as he scoffs at the notion of blood. Raig's expression twists with fury, warning that Diella's actions will destroy their family. His brother's outburst leaves Raig stunned, asking if that is truly how he feels. Derek turns his back, coldly stating Diella crossed the line first and belongs in the annex. Left alone in the hallway, Raig's profile hardens with a bitter, unresolved frustration. A sharp glance follows Derek's retreating form, green eyes burning with resentment. Outside the window, a lone bird chirps, oblivious to the tension within the estate. Diella bursts into Derek's room, her shout of his name echoing down the hall. Startled from his reading, Derek looks up, asking what could possibly be happening so early. His gaze falls to the open book and scroll in his lap, a moment of quiet study. Diella stands before him, delivering an ultimatum about a magic duel and his employment. Derek calmly acknowledges the challenge, noting Raig's established skill as a one-star mage. Diella's face contorts with rage, screaming that he is getting fired for his lack of faith. Derek coldly states his mercenary terms, a simple transaction of service for payment. His crimson eyes hold no warmth as he confirms the job is already complete. Diella's blue eyes widen in shock, questioning if he truly means what he says. A week passes, marked by a noble banner snapping against a bright cloud-streaked sky. From a high vantage point, a group approaches the grand estate grounds below. A bearded nobleman strides forward with his entourage, his expression stern and purposeful. He finds Derek waiting in a courtyard, acknowledging his arrival with a curt nod. Derek simply adjusts his glove, his demeanor calm and utterly unimpressed by the setting. This nobleman studies him, asking if he feels any nerves before the coming test. Leaning back in his chair, the man muses on Derek's surprising confidence in this situation. He concludes Derek is not someone to be underestimated or dismissed too early. A new opponent's cloak billows as he clenches a fist, radiating focused intensity. He declares this is no simple duel but a chance to thoroughly crush Diella. Turning his back, he vows to make Diella deeply regret the past. Diella, cloaked in red, steps forward with quiet determination, her face set for the confrontation. Diella questions Derek's cold indifference to the fallout. He calmly states her mana growth is on track, though one-star magic will take time. Confused, she asks why he suddenly brings up her Duplain blood. Derek reminds her the wild school is built on self-study, not direct teaching. Diella shouts, demanding to know why he is saying this now. Her expression darkens as she admits she is not that great of a student. Tears well in her eyes as she pleads to keep learning magic only from him. Derek stands silently, his back turned, processing her raw confession. He warns her he knows nothing of noble duel etiquette or its rules. However, he offers to teach her how to win in actual combat instead. A flashback reveals the cruel whispers of her family, branding her a monster. They lament her very existence, unfavorably comparing her to her sister Ashlyn. Tears stream down Diella's face as she steels herself to ask for his help. She stands determined, no longer defined as just Raig's sister or a Duplain. Derek watches her, recognizing she is finally here as her own person. No longer just a noble, Diella stands as Derek's student and a mage in her own right. This Duplain family crest snaps in the wind, marking the official grounds for the duel. Cloaked in red, she walks toward the center of the courtyard, her opponent waiting. An official clears his throat, preparing to announce the formal rules of engagement. He declares they will use advanced dueling rules, where triggering the protection circle means defeat. Raig smirks confidently as Diella meets his gaze, the duel about to commence. A glowing green orb materializes, General Phelim's protection circle, which monitors injury and nullifies spells. Derek watches from the sidelines, noting the expensive trinkets and the strict 10-minute time limit. Raig begins his assault, chanting an incantation as green magical energy swirls around him. This first attack rushes toward Diella, her red cloak whipping in the magical wind. A hand channels a concentrated vortex of green power, preparing the next strike. Raig apologizes coldly, stating he must send her to the annex like this. He leaps into the air, unleashing a powerful downward slash while shouting her name. A massive arc of green energy slices through the courtyard, heading straight for Diella. Her wide blue eye reflects the incoming attack, a moment of shock and realization. Diella in her red cloak unleashes a sweeping arc of green mana. Her opponent's eyes widen in shock, a finger raised to his chin in disbelief. With a furious shout, he retaliates, launching his own green energy in a wide slash. This red-cloaked girl leaps backward, narrowly dodging the magical attack. Derek watches calmly, noting her decent control of one-star magic but critiquing her combat inexperience. A violent collision of green and blue magic erupts, shattering the air between them. Diella thrusts her hands forward, conjuring a massive, jagged wall of ice to block the assault. Her opponent scoffs, dismissing her raw mana manifestation as a cheap, ineffective trick. He raises his hand, summoning a barrage of swirling green projectiles aimed directly at her. With a confident smirk, he dares Diella to try stopping this overwhelming volley. From behind her ice barrier, Diella watches the storm of green magic rain down upon her. A flashback shows Derek teaching her, explaining that a mercenary's path to victory differs from a noble's. Diella worries aloud, noting this duel's brutal nature might earn her curses even if she wins. Derek's crimson eyes meet hers, asking if she is truly okay with achieving victory by any means. With fierce determination, Diella shouts her absolute agreement, ready to embrace his ruthless lesson. Her blue eyes narrow beneath the red hood, a fierce determination hardening her gaze. Green crescent spells rain down as she crouches, narrowly dodging the magical barrage. A swirling vortex of energy whips past her, her body twisting mid-evasion. A lesson echoes: true fighters control the battlefield, using any means to win. Raig snarls, channeling green mana into his hands for another devastating strike. She launches herself forward, boots kicking up dust as she closes the distance. Crouched low, she scans the terrain, her mind racing to turn the environment against him. A massive glowing crescent of power arcs through the air toward her. This key, a whisper reminds, is to exploit any moment of carelessness. Her face strains, sweat beating as she pushes her evasion to the limit. A cold smirk touches his lips as he declares the duel is over. Another brilliant green slash cleaves the air, forcing her into a desperate roll. A colossal explosion of smoke and light erupts where she just stood. Derek watches the chaos unfold, his crimson eyes betraying no emotion. Raig's triumphant shout dies in his throat, replaced by a horrified scream of her name. From the balcony, Raig shouts in panic, begging Derek to stop the duel before Diella gets hurt. This bearded nobleman remains seated, calmly stating the duel is not over yet. Raig protests, insisting Diella was hit by a spell, but the nobleman notes the defensive circle never activated. A silent, tense moment passes as the nobleman's expression remains unreadable. On the field, Diella sits calmly on a bench, her back to the action. A silver-haired observer notes her complete lack of reaction, wondering if this was all part of her plan. Suddenly, Derek dashes across the platform with startling speed. He is confused, realizing the wind blades he launched should have struck her, but the circle did not activate. His thoughts are cut short as he senses something behind him, his eyes widening in shock. A close-up shows a foot stepping onto the stone platform with decisive force. A massive shard of ice erupts from below, striking Derek and sending him flying. He crashes hard onto the platform, knocked off balance by the unexpected attack. Diella's fierce eyes glare from below, revealing she is attacking from beneath the stage. Staggering up, Derek realizes being forced off the platform means defeat by the duel's rules. This older nobleman watches with a knowing, slightly smug expression as the tables turn. Under the platform, Raig questions the rules, realizing this lowbrow tactic has no place in noble duels. A sudden crack beneath his feet makes him look down in alarm. Frozen spikes erupt from the stage, forcing him to leap back in shock. Jagged ice pillars surround him, cutting off his movement and trapping him. He grits his teeth, noting she's hidden and hard to hit but only needs one clean strike. Leaping into the air, he scoffs at the complete lack of noble etiquette in her strategy. Landing hard, he shouts her name in frustration, spotting only her shadow on the tiles. From the hole in the stage, Diella emerges, her eyes glowing with fierce determination. A close-up reveals her intense, focused gaze, a stark contrast to her earlier fear. Raig freezes, recognizing those calm, dangerous eyes from a past confrontation with Derek. His expression hardens with grim realization, understanding the true source of her tactics. From his bench, the silver-haired observer deduces Derek devised this entire unorthodox strategy. Derek calmly adjusts his glove, a silent acknowledgement of the observer's correct guess. His cape flutters as he stands amidst the ice, fully engaged in the duel's new phase. Raig extends a hand, reluctantly accepting he must now play along with Derek's ruthless game. Massive ice shards erupt from below, forcing the duel's official to leap back in shock. A shocked noblewoman gasps, realizing Diella has vanished into the dusty pit beneath the platform. Her father shouts in panic, demanding the duel be stopped immediately. This bearded nobleman remains calmly seated, insisting they watch a bit longer. He strokes his chin in silent, thoughtful observation. Below, Diella moves through the dark, icy cavern she created. Her determined eyes focus, whispering she can finally see it. Swirling green and blue mana flows become visible in the air around her. Rhaeg senses the shift, his eyes widening in alarm as his chant falters. Another ice spike bursts from the ground, nearly catching his foot. He stumbles, realizing she interrupts his every chant by breaking the ground. Panic sets in as he thinks he cannot lose like this. A close-up shows his green eyes darting, sweat beading on his temple. From above, the dual platform is now surrounded by jagged ice formations. Diela crouches in the cavern, noting the mana flow has stopped, preparing her next move. From his precarious perch atop the flagpole, Rhaeg launches a final decisive magical assault. He calculates the distance, confident Diela cannot react, but chanting a spell here is impossible. With no other choice, he decides to deploy the spell directly from his body without a chant. A brilliant, concentrated beam of blue-white energy erupts downward from his position. Derek watches the unfolding attack, his crimson eyes cold and analytical. This powerful strike impacts the stone platform below, causing a massive, cracking explosion. This force of the blast sends the flagpole itself hurtling through the air. Rhaeg is thrown from his vantage point, tumbling uncontrollably from the sudden recoil. A sharp, dark projectile, likely a piece of debris, streaks across the sky. From the balcony, a noblewoman screams Rhaeg's name in sheer panic. Rhaeg crashes hard onto the ground below, landing in a painful, dust-choked heap. His eyes widen in utter shock as he processes what just happened. A silhouette Diela darts through the lingering smoke with incredible speed. Rhaeg, now composed, channels his green mana and prepares a counterattack. A piercing, blue magical arrow shoots forward, aimed directly at a falling, blonde-haired figure. A hand channels brilliant blue mana, preparing a magical strike. Diela's blue eyes blaze with fierce determination, her teeth gritted. A crystalline ice spear rockets forward, trailing swirling energy. She watches the projectile descend, her expression shifting to alarm. Across the dusty platform, Rhaeg stands ready, his posture tense. His mind races, close the distance, land one decisive magic arrow. With a burst of speed, Diela launches herself at him. Their faces mirror intense focus, separated by the clash's fury. Rhaeg staggers, clutching his chest as pain lances through him. Fingers dig into the earth, grounding himself for the next move. Diela sweeps forward, her red cloak a blur of motion. A sudden impact rocks Rhaeg's face, forcing a pained grunt. He collapses, glaring up at her victorious stance above. Through gritted teeth, he notes her desperate, unorthodox tactics. Derek walks away, acknowledging the duel's true purpose fulfilled. Derek's profile hardens, vowing to face his brother with everything he has. From behind, Diela watches Rhaeg collapse onto the dueling platform. A hand reaches out, feeling the mana swirl at her fingertips with newfound control. A single drop of blood falls, pooling into a vivid, spreading crimson circle. A metaphorical brush dips into the red pool, explaining mana as paint and spells as brushes. In a starry memory, Derek gathers swirling blue mana, teaching her to paint a picture. A younger Diela looks on in awe as he defines the phenomenon as magic. Under a vast, starlit sky, Derek demonstrates the flowing, luminous blue mana. A close-up shows young Diela's face, her eyes wide with dawning understanding. In the present, she is engulfed by a swirling vortex of blue energy. This memory's lesson echoes: mana is the paint, the spell is the brush. Her form is illuminated, glowing with the powerful, swirling blue mana. Her hand clutches her head, confusion and pain flashing across her face. Determined, she resolves to paint her own picture with this powerful paint. A shocked nobleman stammers, utterly stunned by the display of raw magical power. A nobleman in the crowd stammers, shocked Diela is using such basic, one-star magic. Derek watches intently, realizing her ice spear could cause a serious accident if unchecked. Diela stands ready, her hands glowing as she prepares to launch a crystalline ice spear. Derek reacts instantly, a swirl of blue wind magic erupting from his outstretched hand. He dashes forward through the wind, determined to intercept her attack before it lands. A close-up shows his fierce green eyes, confident he can strike first and win. Diela, however, remains calm, her own hand glowing as she unleashes a barrage of ice. Derek is forced to defend, the ice spears crashing against his wind barrier with explosive force. A brilliant flash of blue light erupts as the two magical attacks collide midair. This impact creates a massive cracking shockwave that blasts across the dueling platform. From the balcony, the silver-haired noblewoman screams Diela's name in sheer panic. A large, shimmering blue barrier materializes, shielding the area from the worst of the blast. This protective dome holds firm, deflecting the explosive energy and flying debris. Derek stands amidst the settling dust, his expression cold and unreadable as he watches. A caption reveals this intense scene as a flashback occurring 1 year ago. In the Grand Hall, a nobleman receives urgent news. His expression darkens as he connects the letter to the recent incident. Turning toward the doorway, he asks how to handle the situation. Alone by the window, Diela sits lost in troubled thought. A heavy silence hangs as the nobleman processes the implications. Now bearing a fresh scar, Diela looks up with renewed resolve. A surge of blue energy suddenly erupts around her standing form. Her breath catches as she realizes the trigger has been activated. Across the dueling ground, a young man kneels before a glowing sword. Tears stream down her face as she cries out her defeat. From the balcony above, the nobleman watches the duel's conclusion. His companion erupts in fury, condemning the vulgar and filthy tactics. Wiping her tears away, Diela stands firm amidst the swirling dust. His voice cuts through, condemning the master who taught such nonsense. A new voice rings out, introducing himself as Raymond Oswald Duplain. This nobleman tells Derek he heard much about him from his father. He notes Derek's eyes are full of ambition just like his. Diella stands alone, tears streaming down her face from the duel's aftermath. A bearded nobleman watches her with a stern, unreadable expression. From the balcony, someone tells Diella her eyes look far better now. Maids rush to surround her, their faces filled with worry and concern. A head maid insists Diella needs immediate treatment for her injuries. This shattered duel platform stands as a silent testament to the brutal fight. Derek approaches, his expression calm as he tells her she did good work. A maid offers to escort the exhausted Diella inside for rest. But Diella suddenly stops, her attention caught by something in the distance. She walks away from the maids, heading toward a figure sitting on a bench. A silver-haired boy with striking red eyes watches her approach. Diella lowers her head, her expression shadowed and difficult to read. This boy's gaze remains fixed on her, a silent question hanging in the air. Her clenched fist trembles as she admits her defeat. Tears well in Diella's eyes as she begs for forgiveness. This silver-haired boy watches her, his expression unreadable. His gloved hands rest calmly on his knees. He tells her it is fine, that he does not care about that. His red eyes hold a steady, instructive gaze. He urges her to face this frustration and grow stronger. Diella's face flushes, tears streaming as she processes his words. A raw, emotional scream bursts from her in release. Maids rush over, calling out to their distressed lady. A woman in a green dress strides urgently across the stone. She calls Diella's name, her voice filled with concern. This older woman kneels, cradling Diella's face with gentle hands. She comforts her daughter, saying everything is okay now. Diella clings to her mother, a fragile look of relief on her face. Tears stream down the noblewoman's face as she clutches her handkerchief in anguish. This silver-haired teacher turns his back, walking away from the confrontation. Her composure cracks, stammering that he is nothing but a commoner beneath them. Confusion flickers across the boy's red eyes as he processes her approach. This noblewoman erupts, screaming at him for teaching such a basic, lowly spell. Heat rushes to his cheeks as he raises a hand, caught off guard by her fury. She leans in close, venom dripping as she calls him shameful for corrupting a duke's daughter. A sharp crack echoes as her palm connects hard against his face. Her voice rises to a shriek, ranting about dignity and values he could never comprehend. This bearded nobleman watches from behind, fists clenched as his wife unleashes her rage. Her expression twists with shock, a red mark blooming across her own cheek. This nobleman steps forward, his voice cutting through, asking who the truly disgraceful one is. Her foot steps forward aggressively, green skirts brushing the grass beneath. His gaze hardens as he reminds her, worthless or not, he is their daughter's teacher. This boy's eyes shadow with quiet fury, questioning what kind of parents treat their child's mentor this way. This Grand Duke pleads for understanding, stating every parent loves differently. This silver-haired boy remains silent, his red eyes betraying a storm of thoughts. Accepting the invitation, he follows the Duke toward a private sitting room. As they depart, a noblewoman watches from the balcony, her expression fraught. Inside, a blonde noblewoman grips her face, overwhelmed by guilt and worry. A pen dips into ink, the Duke praising the boy's effective teaching of Diella. Seated at his desk, the Duke declares his intent to grant a proper reward. He offers the highest rank a commoner can achieve, a powerful 3-star spell. A revelation, the Duke is a 5-star mage, the nation's Grand Duke himself. Recognizing the moment, the boy's resolve hardens and he accepts the offer. This Duke notes the 1-star spell was taught well, but high society demands more. This boy argues others in Duplane can now guide Diella's rapid growth. This Duke corrects him, stating his daughter needs a master, not just an instructor. A pen hovers over ink, the unspoken contract hanging heavy in the air. This Duke sees through him, recognizing ambitions far beyond a commoner's dreams. In the study, the nobleman explains the Grand Duke's silence was a calculated insult. With a cold gaze, the silver-haired boy reveals his ambition extends far beyond 3-star magic. A hand writes on parchment, the nobleman warning such lofty intentions cannot be contained here. This bearded man leans forward, his sharp eyes piercing through the boy's preparations to leave. From across the desk, he concedes the boy's ambition but demands he teach Diella more. A close-up captures the boy's intense red eyes, questioning the highest realm allowed for a commoner. This nobleman makes his offer, asking directly if the boy desires a 3-star spell. A determined look crosses the boy's face as he answers without hesitation. Heavy doors swing open, flooding the dim room with a brilliant shaft of light. This boy steps through the doorway into the grand, sunlit library beyond. He reaches up, pulling a large, ornate spellbook from a high shelf. A gloved hand carefully turns the ancient, diagram-filled pages of the powerful tome. Holding the book, he pauses, a silent moment of contemplation passing over him. His expression shifts to one of quiet awe, whispering the magic within is amazing. This camera pulls back, revealing the vast library where such rare spellbooks are kept. In the vast library, the silver-haired teacher discovers rows of 3-star spellbooks. Holding one, he realizes this gives him a valid reason to remain at the estate. Meanwhile, a bearded nobleman worries his wife Pelline will react poorly if she learns. A flock of birds takes flight across the bright sky, signaling a shift in time. Outside, Diella proudly declares herself a 1-star mage, holding her new badge. This teacher acknowledges her achievement, though his tone remains flat and unimpressed. Diella protests his lack of excitement, but he notes it is not particularly early progress. He observes she has recovered quickly in 3 days, recalling her earlier emotional breakdown. Blushing, Diella denies crying, claiming dust had simply gotten into her eyes. She admits relief, having feared he would be dismissed after the duel's fallout. Turning to business, the teacher suggests beginning her next lesson immediately. Diella questions his comment about her quick progress, seeking clarification. He explains her rapid spellcasting is rare, given how recently her mana awakened. Beaming, Diella agrees, calling herself the capable type he underestimated. Eagerly, she asks which spell comes first, Mana Arrow or the Wind Blade. Diella excitedly recalls her successful Ice Spear, already planning to hit Brother Reg. Her excitement drops when her teacher announces they're switching to Mana Manifestation training. He explains there are many reasons, but fundamentals are what truly matter. She reluctantly agrees, pouting as he begins his explanation. Diella admits she got too excited about learning another one-star spell. A close-up captures her disappointed yet attentive expression. This teacher notices her gaze and asks why she is looking at him like that. He clarifies he is just surprised by how well she is listening. Diella huffs, claiming she has always respected his words from the start. A flashback reveals she once dumped dirty water on his head twice. Back in the present, she looks away, embarrassed he still remembers. He dryly remarks it is hard to forget such an introduction. Laughing it off, she eagerly declares Mana Manifestation sounds fun. He echoes her laughter, though his smile seems slightly forced. This scene shifts to the castle under a serene, moonlit night. Under the night sky, the silver-haired boy remarks Diella will be busy soon. Diella, exhausted on the grass, confirms he also heard the news. She sighs, revealing she must start etiquette classes next week. This boy questions if that is not a good thing, given her recent progress. Diella's shoulders slump, listing the overwhelming curriculum of noble studies. She wonders how her sister Aselin endured it all. He meets her gaze, explaining that is why her sister is a social icon. Sitting together, Diella confesses she just wants to learn magic. This boy simply tells her to do it, noting their current leeway. A close-up captures his confident smirk, asking who would fire him now. Diella turns, a playful smile hinting her mother will not let this go. She explains her mother fears learning from him strips her noble dignity. This boy's expression turns serious, acknowledging the duel lacked noble honor. He then leans in, stating silencing the lady of the house is simple. Diella looks up in confusion as the scene shifts to daytime. In the grand hall, a noblewoman stands frozen, her expression haunted. A memory surfaces, the silver-haired teacher's terrifying grin, his methods brutal. She whispers, "Oh, my poor child," guilt and worry twisting her features. Flashback, the teacher demonstrates a spell, telling Diella to watch carefully. Present, Diella's grand debut in society, her name echoing through the crowd. Clutching her temples, the noblewoman groans, overwhelmed by the vivid recollection. She questions what a lowborn could possibly teach, her pride warring with concern. Determined, she resolves to find a way, her own authority as lady of the house. Spotting her daughter, she calls out, "Diella," her voice a mix of relief and dread. A tender memory blooms, holding infant Diella, whispering about her mother's love. This memory softens, her smile gentle as she recalls the child's happiness in her arms. But the smile falters, a silent question hanging in the air, a shadow passing. Her expression shifts to confusion, a sudden, unsettling doubt creeping in. Diella appears, asking brightly if she slept well, surrounded by a gentle, magical aura. This noblewoman stares, stunned, her breath catching at her daughter's sudden presence. This noblewoman, Peline, looks stunned, processing her daughter's sudden, glowing presence. Diella excuses herself with a bright smile, eager to attend her magic lessons. Peline calls after her, a worried question about the upcoming etiquette classes forming. Aselin appears beside her sister, confirming the schedule and expressing her own excitement. A bead of sweat traces down Peline's face as she weakly urges Diella along. From a high angle, the mother watches as her daughter walks across the courtyard. A sudden stumble, a sharp sound as Diella trips on the stone path. A maid rushes over, her voice dripping with false concern as she checks on her. This maid's face shifts to shock, her eyes wide with a sudden, fearful realization. Peline stands rigid, her gaze following Diella as the girl continues onward, unbothered. This scene shifts to the noble district, where an angel statue watches over the gardens. Over tea, a noblewoman expresses her past worry for Aselin's apparent burdens. Aselin responds with practiced grace, a hand to her cheek in mild surprise. She assures the woman her concerns are resolved, a serene smile on her face. This red-haired noblewoman, Elent, expresses relief, mentioning a troubling rumor about Aselin. Azelin thanks Lady Elent for her concern, explaining she had to find a tutor for Diella herself. This red-haired noblewoman processes this. Azelin personally sought a tutor, wondering just how remarkable he must be. Denise Veltis Linear, the second daughter of House Veltis, reacts with surprise to the mention of Diella. Other noblewomen at the table remark on Diella's stunning transformation into a graceful, unrecognizable young lady. Azelin adds that Diella can now use one-star magic, her calm demeanor making her feel she must improve. Denise finds it strange Azelin is praising Diella, recalling how she used to hide her sister's existence. Azelin confirms the tutor is not a noble but is highly capable, worth the effort of visiting a mercenary group. This mention of a mercenary startles both Denise and the other noblewoman, their expressions shifting to shock. This red-haired noblewoman pauses, a thoughtful look crossing her face as she begins to connect the dots. A memory surfaces of Diella's former chef resigning due to her behavior, contrasting with Elent's current kindness. She realizes the tutor not only reformed Diella in 1 month but also elevated her to a one-star mage. A sly, knowing smile touches her lips as she sips her tea, a new plan forming in her mind. Turning directly to Aizelin, she asks for the name of the tutor who teaches Diella. She explains her curiosity, stating that as Diella's tutor, his fame is bound to grow significantly. Aizelin reveals the tutor's name is Derek, the single word hanging in the air with weight. In a sunlit parlor, Diella mentions Derek also taught her some etiquette. This silver-haired woman looks surprised, impressed Diella managed to learn it herself. Diella clarifies it was not all self-taught as Derek was her primary teacher. With a bright smile, she admits everything felt difficult but credits Derek entirely. This woman smiles knowingly but internally seethes at the constant mention of Derek. Storming down a hallway, she fumes about how many more times his name will arise. Her expression hardens with resolve, determined to find a way to deal with this. A young maid remarks that Lady Diella has become much kinder to the servants lately. An elderly gardener notes her good mood, surprised she has changed so much in weeks. This butler finds it surprising as he has only seen that gentle attitude from Lady Aizelin. Another nobleman observes she might be becoming a true lady, sensing a noble aura. This scene shifts to a quiet, starry night over the estate's wooded grounds. An open spellbook lies on the grass, its complex diagrams glowing faintly in the dark. A close-up shows the silver-haired teacher's face, sweat beading from intense concentration. He is enveloped in crackling blue energy, his red eyes sharp as he casts a spell. A single bead of sweat traces down his cheek under the night sky. His gloved fingers twitch, channeling a faint, swirling blue mana. Collapsing onto the grass, he pants heavily from the intense training. Residual magic bubbles float around him as he struggles to catch his breath. A nobleman approaches, asking if he is interrupting the training session. This boy turns, denying any interruption and questioning the unexpected visit. They sit together under the stars, the nobleman wanting to discuss Diella. His gaze drops to the book, asking if it is a 3-star spellbook. This boy confirms the Duke lent it, his tone matter of fact. This nobleman reacts with shock, repeating that his father lent it. He explains it is beyond his level, but studying it early is harmless. This Duke, listening nearby, acknowledges him as a true mage. This nobleman agrees, impressed by the boy's dedication and foresight. Returning to the topic, the boy asks what the nobleman wanted to discuss. This nobleman hesitates, unsure how to ask about a girl's interests. This nobleman wonders aloud if Diella would like a doll embroidered in her likeness. Derek immediately shuts the idea down with a flat, definitive refusal. Accepting the judgment, the nobleman admits he was getting ahead of himself. He then asks if Derek is finished training, suggesting they return together. This two begin walking back across the moonlit grounds toward the mansion. As they walk, the nobleman expresses sincere gratitude for Derek's presence. He notes the mansion's atmosphere has grown peaceful, with even his brother focused. Derek offers a subtle, knowing smile at the observation about their father's satisfaction. Looking at the stars, the nobleman reflects he must accept that people can change. He questions whether he was blind to Diella's growth or simply avoiding it. Turning to Derek, he credits the tutor entirely for the positive changes. Derek listens silently, his expression unreadable as the thanks is delivered. This nobleman then remarks Diella's magic feels distinct, like painting, asking if Derek noticed. Derek internally acknowledges her genius, surprised the nobleman could detect such a subtle difference. He confirms it, explaining she uses a mana manipulation method from the wild school. Derek explains that everyone's mana usage is unique and once Diella understands it. This nobleman listens intently as Derek adds that at her level, a teacher's interference would hinder progress. Gazing at the night sky, Derek expresses his belief that one day Diella will shine. A title card marks a time jump, showing a single, beautiful flower lying on a sunlit floor. Diella, now in a red dress, questions the flowers as her maid explains they were blooming beautifully. She smells the blossoms, remarking they feel like spring arrived early, a soft smile on her face. Walking with her maid, Diella reflects on mastering 1-star magic and growing closer to the servants. With a grateful expression, she credits her newfound happiness and progress entirely to Derek's guidance. Her maid smiles, noting Diella's cheerful mood and correctly guessing it is magic lesson day. Excitedly confirming it, Diella asks if her happiness is really that obvious, her eyes sparkling. As the maid arranges the flowers, Diella asks to keep one, wanting to give it to Derek. A dramatic vertical panel shows the gifted flower falling, petals scattering as it hits the ground. Diella stands frozen in a doorway, staring down at the dropped flower with a shocked expression. Tears well in her eyes as she looks up, asking Derek what he means by his words. Derek, standing with another nobleman, confirms coldly that there is nothing more he can teach her. A poetic reflection on the turning of seasons, a metaphor for inevitable change. In the study, the Duke acknowledges Derek's notice of Diella's exceptional talent. Derek looks down, conflicted, believing his continued presence will only limit her potential. This Duke confirms Derek's understanding, stating he no longer has reason to remain. A close-up on the Duke's face, a silent, heavy pause hanging between them. He stands abruptly, the sound sharp, his expression unreadable as he faces Derek. With a strained voice, the Duke admits Derek's influence has changed many things here. He confesses his focus on the territory left him little chance to be a proper father. Now, however, seeing Diella's growth, he finally feels a sense of ease. This Duke turns his back, asking the pivotal question of when Derek plans to leave. Derek explains he will depart with Lady Aizelin when she returns to Ebelstein. This Duke processes this, realizing Derek came to return the library key and books. He instructs Derek to simply hand the key to the steward, dismissing the formality. Derek sits silently, his bag packed, a quiet moment of acceptance before his exit. This Duke turns toward the window, granting permission to leave if nothing else remains. This Duke looms over Derek, his imposing figure casting a long shadow. Derek walks alone down the grand, empty hallway, his steps echoing. Diella confronts him, her voice sharp with accusation over his sudden departure. A close-up on Diella's face, her expression a mix of hurt and demand. Derek sighs, accepting the inevitable as he prepares to deliver difficult news. Diella's eyes widen, a silent, desperate plea forming on her lips. A tight shot of Derek's conflicted face, his silence speaking volumes. His boots turn away, the finality of his decision clear in the motion. Derek explains his duty to return to his mercenary life but promises to keep studying. Diella's face falls, a storm of frustration and sadness brewing in her eyes. He offers a future meeting, a promise to teach her more once he has improved. Diella looks away, biting back her words with a frustrated, whispered complaint. Under the moonlit sky, her voice echoes, acknowledging his frustratingly correct reasoning. Later, Diella lies awake in bed, haunted by a voice calling her useless. A nightmare vision surrounds her, shadowy figures condemning her lack of talent and worth. This nightmare intensifies, a cruel voice branding her a disgrace who should never have been born. Diella jolts awake with a strangled cry, the phantom accusations still ringing in her ears. Gasping for breath in her moonlit room, she clutches her chest, heart pounding from the terror. A concerned maid bursts through the door, having heard the scream, her face etched with worry. Trembling, Diella tries to compose herself, explaining it was just a nightmare to the worried servant. Her mind races, a chilling thought taking root. What if her old, cruel self returned? A vision of the past surfaces, her hand raised to strike a servant, causing a terrible scene. Sitting up in bed, she wonders if Derek would have stayed if she'd reverted to that monster. This maid gently presses, asking if she's unwell, her tone full of genuine concern. A close-up on Diella's face shows a sudden, steely resolve hardening her features. She firmly tells the maid no, her voice steady with a newfound determination. With a soft, reassuring smile, she claims she's fine, dismissing the worry. Internally, she vows never to become that hateful person again, no matter the fear. This scene shifts to the grand estate exterior under a calm morning sky. At a carriage, Derek prepares to leave, asking Aizelin if the trade district drop-off is acceptable. Aizelin smiles warmly, telling Derek to go say his goodbyes. Derek's gaze drops, a conflicted silence settling over him. Outside, the household gathers to see the departing tutor off. One nobleman steps forward, asking if Derek is really leaving. Aizelin's voice softens, acknowledging how hard his life here must have been. Derek nods slightly, offering a simple, sincere thank you. His red eyes remain silent, holding back a deeper response. Diella stands apart, arms crossed, watching the exchange with a tense expression. Derek's gaze shifts to her, making her immediately defensive. Diella's voice sharpens, denying she would ever beg him to stay. Derek's tone is sincere, calling it an honor to have taught her. Diella's pride flashes, declaring she will brag about him to everyone. A faint smile touches Derek's lips at her spirited claim. Diella's defiance fades, her expression softening into quiet emotion. Her voice cracks slightly as she tells him to take care, and he reassures her. Diella, hands on her hips, declares with fierce determination that she is an adult now. A tight close-up on Derek's sharp red eyes, his expression unreadable and intense. Standing with arms crossed, Derek echoes her sentiment, stating he too can take care of himself. A sudden tight hug from behind catches Derek off guard, his face showing clear surprise. This dark-haired nobleman smiles gently, telling Derek to remember his words in his heart. A profile shot of Derek's face, his silence and slight frown speaking volumes about his inner conflict. Diella turns, her expression shifting to surprise as she is formally addressed by name. Derek gently places a hand on her head, reassuring her she does not have to grow up so quickly. Tears well in Diella's eyes, her face scrunching up as she struggles to hold back emotion. Wiping her eyes, Diella turns to watch Derek walk away toward the waiting carriage. Hearing his name called, Derek pauses and glances back over his shoulder. With a bright tear-streaked smile, Diella waves enthusiastically, shouting until they meet again. From behind, she continues waving as Derek boards the carriage, her figure full of hopeful energy. A close-up on Diella's face shows a bittersweet smile, tears still falling as she watches him leave. This scene shifts to the Ebelstein commercial district at dusk, where a rat scurries through an alley. A brutal flashback shows a blonde woman striking down a man, blood splattering across the scene. Derek bursts through the doorway as chaos erupts, voices screaming for violence while he moves to intervene. A fist connects with brutal force, sending blood spraying from the impact. This blonde woman's eyes widen with shock and relief as she recognizes him. Derek stands in the doorway, white hair catching the light, his red eyes scanning the room. This camera pulls back to reveal Belden's Tier Tavern, its weathered sign hanging above the entrance. Inside, the bearded bartender slides a tankard of meat across the counter toward Derek and the woman. Pelline leans forward, teasing him about his pallor, wondering if noble life has drained the color from his skin. This bartender's curiosity gets the better of him as he presses Derek about his time teaching magic. Derek takes a long drink, deflecting with vague answers about just doing his job. Pelline's teasing continues, mocking how he has adopted their mannerisms. This bartender intervenes, urging her to drink instead while she grumbles about the extra work his absence caused. This conversation shifts to compensation, the bartender asking if the nobles paid him fairly. Derek's cryptic response hints at something beyond coin, something that matters more to him. An ornate spellbook sits on the table, its leather binding and metal corners catching the light. Peline leans over the table, her eyes wide with shock at the rare spellbook. Derek calmly corrects her, his red eyes steady as he reveals its true 3-star rank. This bartender panics, shouting about the deadly consequences of stealing such a valuable item. Peline ignores him, her focus entirely on acquiring her own powerful book. A tense silence falls as Derek reveals the Grand Duke personally gifted him the tome. Peline's shock turns to aggressive suspicion, demanding to know if he's lying about his new role. A quiet moment passes, the candlelight flickering as the conversation hangs in the air. Back at the tavern, Derek asks about new work, already looking for his next mission. Peline protests, confused why he's seeking another job so soon after returning. Derek explains he wants something simple, feeling his combat skills have grown rusty. This bartender chuckles, dismissing his worries and noting the constant demand for reliable mages. Determined, Derek insists on starting a new assignment as soon as possible. This scene shifts to a bright day with Derek and Peline riding in a supply wagon. A monstrous creature suddenly lunges from the trees, forcing Peline into a desperate sprint. Standing over the slain beast, Derek and Peline catch their breath, arrows protruding from its hide. Under a starry sky, Derek and Peline rest by a campfire, their journey underway. Later that night, Derek stands alone in the forest, practicing a swirling blue spell. His concentration intensifies as he channels more power, the magic crackling around him. A close-up shows his hands forming a complex sigil, energy coalescing into a sharp point. This spell erupts forward with blinding speed, a lance of pure force cutting through the air. This impact shakes the very trees, a shockwave of light and sound erupting in the distance. Exhausted, Derek collapses to the ground, breathing heavily from the magical exertion. He opens his spellbook, noting his solid grasp on 2-star magic but the difficulty of 3-star. This scene shifts to the exterior of Belden's Tier Tavern under a bright, sunny sky. Autumn leaves now fall around the tavern, marking the passage of time as seasons change. Winter arrives, blanketing the tavern's roof and sign in a thick layer of snow. A door creaks open, revealing the dark, snowy night outside from within the warm tavern. Peline shivers dramatically as she and Derek enter, complaining about the bitter cold. This bartender greets them, expressing surprise at their plan to climb Mount Kent in such weather. He accepts their bounty, a harpy's head, calling them the only ones crazy enough for this. Derek thanks the bartender, blood still fresh on his shoulder from the tavern brawl. This bartender lanes in, offering a new mission suited for Derek's skills. He describes it as easy and well-paying, though a bit of a hassle. This mission comes from the Rohul Mercenary Company on West Street. A cloaked figure mentions Count Belmierd, setting up the noble connection. Derek learns he is hired as a punching bag for a noble's magic duel. At the arena gates, he is told to simply endure a few hits. A red-haired noblewoman strides with her elderly tutor toward the duel grounds. She questions her opponent, and the tutor reveals it is a commoner for practice. Shocked, she protests fighting someone of common birth for training. This tutor justifies it as part of her training, with compensation promised. She accepts cynically, noting nobles always turn commoners into punching bags. Walking ahead, she boasts about reaching 2-star magic soon, dismissing Derek's 1-star. Derek sits alone in the waiting area, tense and preparing himself. He coughs softly, stealing his nerves as the duel approaches. A confident red-haired woman crosses her arms, asking if Derek is her opponent today. This white-haired mercenary bows slightly, introducing himself as Derek before an observing elder. Alette introduces herself, a flicker of recognition crossing her eyes at his name. As they walk toward the arena, onlookers whisper doubts about the young mage's legitimacy. Alette stretches casually under the open sky, her posture relaxed yet ready. She turns to him, asking if he understands the basic rules of a formal duel. Derek meets her gaze, confirming with calm certainty that he knows the fundamentals. Alette states he must fight with all his strength to make the duel end faster. Her internal monologue reveals a plan to force him out of bounds with a shockwave. Derek questions what kind of resistance she is actually looking for from him. Alette's expression shifts to confusion, finding his question strangely out of place. He explains he needs to gauge the right level of resistance to be of help. This elderly observer closes his eyes, a subtle shake of his head conveying disapproval. A close-up on Alette's lips shows her letting out a short, amused laugh. She smirks, calling his speech unusual before firmly repeating her demand for his full strength. A faint, confident smile touches Derek's lips as he accepts the duel. Blue magic crackles around his hand, his red eyes locked on his opponent. Across the stone platform, Alette readies her own glowing green spell. She launches a barrage of ice shards, internally mocking his commoner origins. Her eyes narrow with aristocratic disdain, determined to prove the gap between them. A colossal pillar of ice erupts skyward, aiming to shatter his defenses. Derek's gaze sharpens, his focus intensifying as the attack descends. He braces, watching the massive ice spell crash down toward him. A shockwave of blue magic meets the ice, the collision exploding in light. Alette's confident smirk vanishes, replaced by stunned disbelief at his block. Derek turns his head slightly, calmly analyzing her next move. Frustration and a dawning realization twist her features as she understands his strength. But she refuses to yield, chanting a new incantation with fierce determination. Surrounded by floating ice lances, she prepares to unleash another powerful spell. With a final shout, she hurls the entire volley of ice at him. Derek unleashes a swift, piercing lance of blue magic across the arena floor. Alette's eyes widen in shock, her confident smirk vanishing instantly. This spell detonates behind her, a shower of crystalline shards erupting from the impact. She spins around, her cloak billowing as she processes the near miss. Her expression shifts to analytical surprise, noting the spell's deceptive simplicity and precise control. This observing tutor murmurs his approval, impressed by the commoner's veteran-level magical skill. A fiery aura ignites around Alette as she concedes her initial underestimation of him. Declaring she will now fight seriously, she channels a more potent, raging fire spell. Derek's red eyes narrow, instantly recognizing her shift from precision strikes to area denial. He notes her tactical adaptation, a surprising level of combat insight for a noble. With a raised hand, she summons a devastating rain of fireballs from above. Derek stands his ground, watching the fiery barrage descend toward the entire platform. A tight close-up on his eye reveals the stark realization dodging is no longer an option. He crosses his arms, conjuring a swirling blue barrier of wind to intercept the attack. This fiery projectile slams into his shield, the impact threatening to shatter his defense. Alette unleashes a powerful shockwave, the ground cracking under the force. Derek braces himself, blue magic swirling around his hands as he prepares a counter. His red eyes widen in surprise, noticing a flaw in her attack pattern. This noblewoman launches forward, a sharp ice spear forming in her grasp. Derek realizes at this range, there is no time to dodge or shield. His fingers snap, casting a quick spell while acknowledging her insane talent. A wide shot shows the two mages clashing in the center of the arena. A blinding flash erupts, leaving Derek clutching his face in pain. This impact sends him skidding back, a grunt escaping his lips. Alette stumbles, her vision obscured by the sudden magical afterimage. Her tutor's voice cuts through the darkness, urging her to focus on sound. Looking up, she sees a single, brilliant beam of light slicing through the air. A close-up on her eye shows dawning horror as she senses movement without sound. From the shadows, Derek stands ready, 3 ice shards floating ominously around him. With a sharp gesture, he launches the shards forward in a silent, deadly volley. A sharp spell strikes Alette, her head snapping back from the unseen impact. Derek reveals his tactic, a soundless illusion spell exploiting her reliance on hearing. Realization dawns on Alette, her anger flaring as she understands his first miss was deliberate. Her pride wounded, she demands to know why he would dare go easy on her. In response, Derek launches 2 brilliant blue lances of magic across the arena. Alette throws up a desperate defense, the spells exploding against her barrier. A tight close-up on her wide, focused eyes, tracking his every move. Derek suddenly closes the distance, rushing toward her with startling speed. Smirking, Alette declares quick spell manifestation is her specialty, preparing to counter. Her mentor's voice urges focus, telling her to strike the moment mana gathers in his hands. Determined, Alette resolves to manifest her spell first and end the duel. But Derek abruptly drops low, sliding across the ground toward her. Confusion flashes across Alette's face, her plans suddenly disrupted. A close-up on Derek's foot as purple lightning crackles across the stone floor. From his very toes, he manifests magic, launching a shocking upward attack. Purple lightning erupts upward from Derek's foot, striking Alette from below and arching her body in agony. This devastating blast sends her skidding backward across the arena as her tutor watches in stunned silence. His eyes widen in disbelief. The technique defies everything he knows about disciplined magic schools. Crumpled on the ground, Alette gasps upward at Derek, her voice barely managing a single word. A genuine smile breaks through her shock as she admits he turned out fascinating. Derek's cold profile reveals his honesty. He confesses he initially looked down on her. Her boot scrapes forward as Alette admits she thought he was just another common braggart. Both mages bow respectfully to each other, the duel's tension dissolving into mutual acknowledgement. Hand pressed to her chest, Alette's warm smile reveals genuine respect for his abilities. Her golden eyes gleam with newfound admiration as she thanks him sincerely for the lesson. Without warning, Derek launches another devastating purple lightning strike, blasting Alette backward through the air. His crimson eyes burn with lethal focus, fingers poised as crackling energy surrounds him. A swirling vortex of purple lightning erupts beneath Derek while Alette watches from above. This energy blast catches her mid-scream, sending her tumbling helplessly through the air. Derek launches skyward, trailing purple energy as Alette watches his ascent from below. From Derek's perspective, his upward spell erupts just as Alette's counter begins to form. Alette's eyes widen in shock, realizing she has been completely outmaneuvered by his unorthodox